Okay, everyone, welcome to hopefully definitely the last endorsement meeting that we're going to have for the November election. We've had, I think, 3 previous ones. We've endorsed over 30 people. We've got 5 really good people tonight that I hope also get the endorsement. Yeah, we thought we were complete, and then people just came from here and there, and here we are. So we're going to really go through this quickly tonight, but it's going to be a small meeting. Mostly people will look at it on YouTube in a day or two when it gets up. When they go to vote, they'll actually watch it. That happens a lot. 50, 60 people will watch it on there. So let's go. Our first person tonight is Anna Vasudeo, who is running for Berkeley School Board, and she's an incumbent. And I've heard great things about what she's done in the past 4 years. And let me see, one of the big things she did, she defended teachers that were being attacked by Zionist parents in the school system here in Berkeley. She's, very, very strong, progressive. Some of us have worked with her. She's quite amazing. I know her from the ADEM slate. We're both on AD 14. What else? Well, she's also, I believe, president of the school board currently. Anyway, but I know she can tell you more. Go, Anna, welcome.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you everyone for inviting me tonight. I know I'm standing between you and the debate, so I will be brief, but wanted to tell you just a little bit about myself. Currently, I am the president of the Berkeley School Board, and I'm honored to seek re-election with the endorsement of the Berkeley Federation of Teachers, the Berkeley Council of Classified Employees, State Superintendent of Public Instruction Tony Thurmond, and organizations such as the Wellstone Democratic Renewal Club, Alameda Labor Council, and Latinos Unidos de Berkeley. During my tenure on the board, I've worked hard for our students in schools. I established a Berkeley Unified Safety Committee and created the position of district-wide safety coordinator to keep our schools safe. I did this in light of the Uvalde shooting in Texas. I advanced public health by expanding COVID-19 testing in Berkeley schools and throughout the state of California. I worked really closely with our labor partners in order to do so. And as board liaison to the Berkeley Schools Excellence Program, the BSEP Committee, I believe firmly in fiscal transparency and accountability, ensuring that our tax dollars are spent effectively for our students. I work collaboratively with our affinity groups and our affinity groups of color to expand ethnic studies and support the work of our educators to ensure that all of our students in BUSD feel a sense of belonging in our schools. As the mom of a student with disabilities in my second term, I want to focus more on expanding support and resources for students with disabilities and uplifting the voices of their families in the schools. I think someone might be.
Somebody needs to turn their sound off.
Michelle?
Michelle. Whoever's the host, can they mute them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I come to this work because I love our district and I believe there's more work to be done to close the opportunity gaps for our Black and Brown students and students with disabilities. As the only incumbent with the support from our educators, I know that I have the consensus building skills to continue to be an effective school board member. In addition to serving on the Berkeley School Board, I'm also a member of the California Latino School Board Association, the largest affinity-based school board organization in the state of California, with over 50% of the students enrolled in California public schools identifying as Latinx. Representation in elected bodies matters. As the only Latina on the school board, I represent the voice of the largest minority group in the district and would be honored to count on your support to ensure that we are supporting equitable and excellent public schools in Berkeley. Furthermore, I'm also thrilled to be endorsed by other progressives in our district, including mayoral candidate Kate Harrison, Berkeley City Council member Cecilia Luna Parra, Berkeley Rent Board Vice Chair Soli Alpert, former Alameda County Superintendent of Schools Sheila Jordan, Berkeley City Auditor Jenny Wong, and many others. Our Evolution East Bay endorsed me in 2020, and I would be so honored to have your support again. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to open it to questions. Would anybody like to begin with questions?
I'll go.
Michael?
You mentioned supporting students and parents, but I think another very important element in schools is the teachers. Although their numbers are fewer than students, but nevertheless, they play a very pivotal role in the students' learning tenure. I know a few teachers, they feel that their class size are very large, larger than they can handle, and they are teaching very heavy load, and their pay is small compared to the other employees. How much influence do you think you have as a school board member on those issues, lowering school size, increasing teacher salaries?
We have a lot of influence. And so, I'll tell you, I was really honored that during my tenure as president, we renewed BSEP, we called it Measure H, during the primaries. And that was really important because that funds 20% of our district's budget, and it funds small class sizes. So for me, that was like, I'm thrilled that it passed with 80% voter approval, over 80% voter approval here in Berkeley. I knocked on about 600 doors to be able to talk to voters about our schools and why this was important. And overall, in that process, I learned that people do love our schools. But as you said, Michael, there are issues that I think the school board needs to focus on if we're going to retain and support teachers and all of our education workers. So things like solving payroll issues in a timely manner, that's something that's really important to me, listening to both our classified staff and our certificated staff, so our teachers, but also our cafeteria workers and bus drivers. Sometimes if they have a payroll dispute, it takes a very long time. And so to get that solved, but when you're making not a lot of money, that can really impact your quality of life, and you might leave the profession because you're like, well, is this worth it? I'm not getting, this is ridiculous. Why does it take months and months and months to solve a very basic payroll dispute? So some of the things that I believe the school board can control and that I've done as a school board member is to raise these issues up to the superintendent so that solving payroll issues becomes part of her evaluation too, right? I think it's really important that from the top, you're all clear on how are you retaining and supporting your workforce. And so that, for me, teacher retention, educator retention in the district is really important. There's a lot of people that don't even want to run for school boards anymore. The California School Board Association is really concerned about the number of school board members that aren't seeking re-election. And so I think, it affects the whole system when you don't retain your really good staff because you can't solve issues like payroll issues or because your benefits are still lagging. So I'm proud that we passed BSEP, that we fund smaller classrooms in Berkeley. I'm really proud of the voter approval that we got on that measure, but it's definitely not enough. And I think as a school board member, you do have a lot of say in compensation and raises, and you have a lot of say in what your superintendent is prioritizing as part of their work. And for me, staff retention is huge. And so that's something that I'm going to prioritize, I have prioritized and will continue to prioritize, because too often we have really amazing people who are just leaving teaching and leaving the profession, and that's unacceptable.
So as a follow-up, not as a follow-up, but my understanding is that a school board member do not have that much influence. It is the superintendent recommendation to somebody, for example, to the city of Berkeley, that can affect real changes. Is that correct?
No, we hire and fire the superintendent. And so like we oversee just one employee, school board members, right? And that employee is your superintendent, your top paid, administrator in the district. So you have a tremendous influence. If you tell the superintendent, right, like, hey, I need you to prioritize teacher retention and compensation, and your superintendent doesn't do it, well, I'm one of five, right? But the majority of the board can say, hey, we looked at the data, we have too many people leaving, you don't have a strong HR department, we're not going to renew your contract. So that's within the purview of the school board. You can decide not to renew the superintendent's contract.
Have you done that?
In Berkeley?
Yeah.
No, I think, one of our superintendents left to go work in another district during the pandemic. And then we just hired Anika. So I've only worked with 2 superintendents, but we haven't, during my tenure, fired a superintendent.
Yeah, the relationship is very similar to the council member to the city manager, isn't it? City manager is like your school superintendent.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, even though they can fire and hire, but they've never done it. the
Yeah,
council?
I will say that things that I've done that have been, a little bit pushing for change for sure is to advocate for a strategic plan. So I'll tell you, everything that I can share that's public, right? The
Yeah.
strategic plan becomes important because you're setting priorities in a transparent way. And as part of that strategic plan, you're telling your superintendent, hey, I need you, whatever is on your evaluation, the community needs to know as part of a strategic plan so that they understand what our priorities are. So we're going through that process in Berkeley, and I'm really proud about it because I think the public needs, the parents and families and educators need to know what is a superintendent prioritizing because we have budget cut seasons. And I mean, that also impacts the amount of people that want to run for school board. When you're reducing the budget, it's not very popular to make cuts, right? But if you have a strong strategic plan where you're really focusing on your students and supporting your educators, I think that you have a stronger district, but you have to communicate that in a transparent way. If you do things kind of shady behind closed doors, I think it makes people not really trust your district.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay,
Thanks.
I have a question, a couple questions actually. What do you see as your biggest challenge, absolutely biggest in the next 4 years?
The budget. I think, when I got on the school board, we had a lot of extra surplus funds from COVID. And so it was when you have surplus funds, you got, people want to fund. We hired a director of equity for Berkeley. We hired a bunch of consulting firm to provide counselors at the different elementary schools, which was new. You can fund cool things when you have extra money, but when you have to make budget cuts, like in the millions of dollars, which is what we did this budget cycle and what we're doing in the upcoming budget cycle, I think that's really hard. That's where you really have to drill down and be super laser data focused. And so, conversations like, how are we closing the opportunity gaps for English language learners, for the kids that are coming in our district without speaking English? Show me, what's the literacy data? What's the math data? And then you cut stuff that's not working. That to me, those are the hardest conversations. But I think that if you go into them with, clear priorities, easier to have those conversations than if you go in, in an unorganized way.
Okay, I don't mean to put you on a bad spot or anything, but I'm going to.
Go ahead, Carol.
I know earlier you were going to run to be a city council person. And
Yeah.
I'm sure we would have supported you, but what happened?
What changed?
Yeah.
I think when I announced that I was running for city council, a lot of people were really sad in the district, including staff, and to be really honest with you, Latino families, because for a long time, and my predecessor, Beatriz Leva Cutler, served 3 terms on the school board, and they're the largest minority group in the district. So it was really hard for me when I announced, like, hey, I'm going to run for council. A lot of people were really sad. A lot of people were really upset, and they wanted me to run for school board. I also have accepted a new position in San Mateo County where I oversee school transportation issues from Daly City to close to Palo Alto and then on the coastal community. So I work really closely with farm worker communities trying to help make sure that those children can get to school. And it's still a civil service position, but I think it's impossible to do a job like that and to serve on council because I think a Berkeley City Council role is very demanding. So I think this allows me to serve my community, which I love, right? I love Berkeley. I'm raising my kids here. My kids are, my son goes to Willard, he goes to public school here. It allows me to still serve and to continue doing what I love, which is transportation work. I hope that in the future I get to run for council, and I do hope that Berkeley will have a stronger council in the future with less council members stepping off.
Okay, great. We have one more question from Sherry.
Anna, we're so glad you could join us again. How big a problem are charter schools in Berkeley? And how much money are they siphoning off of the public schools?
That's a great question. Well, I'm thrilled that we don't have charter schools in Berkeley. So it's a non-Berkeley issue, right? So that's kind of nice, right? I don't have to worry about the same things that school board directors in like Oakland or other cities have to worry about. But that doesn't mean that I don't, organize against, charters, against the proliferation of charters, right? Because they lack accountability. They can cherry pick which students attend. They take away money from the system, right? So I am part of a group called the Progressive Education Leaders Network with other progressive school board directors. So it's kind of cool to participate in those conversations and help them kind of brainstorm solutions to the charter issue. But I've been really fortunate that we don't have charter schools in Berkeley.
Okay, do you want to wrap up and then we'll go on to our next person here?
Yeah, all I want to say is thank you so much for having supported me in my 2020 campaign. I love working with members of our revolution, loved campaigning with you, Carol, when we were running for the 8M slate, and would be honored to count on your support for another 4 years. I think right now on school boards, you see a lot of very anti-union sentiments, a lot of kind of conservative voices, anti-LGBTQ voices in Sunol Glen, and there's still a lot of work to do, not only in Berkeley, but in our county, to organize against some of these really conservative voices that are trying to make sure that our schools are not diverse. And so I hope to continue to serve to ensure that our progressive values continue in our classrooms and in our public schools.
Okay, well, thank you for coming, and we loved hearing from you again.
Thank you for having me. Good night.
Good night. Okay, we're going to move on to the next candidate. Sherry, do you want to introduce her?
Well, I do. I have to say that I didn't have a chance to look up any of all of the things. So she's going to have to tell you more about the things that she's done, because I actually flew into Denver today. So I just got to my hotel room. But Michelle and I have been buddies and serving in the trenches in Alameda for practically since I know 2016. She was on my board when I was president of the Alameda Democratic Club. And when I had to leave, when I left Alameda and moved to Contra Costa County, she actually took my position as being Austin's second, what do you call it? Yeah, that one. So she's a wonderful teacher of special ed kids. You know, we need so many of those. She is a big member of her union and has worked her way up to being in a leadership position in her union. And for those of you who don't know too much about the city of Alameda, the city council in Alameda is basically 4 council members and the mayor. So almost all of the critical votes come down to 3-2. And when it's 3 conservatives, a lot of the things that the progressives have been able to get, like rent control and no fault evictions and sanctuary city, all that is being sort of chipped away because we don't have the majority of progressives on the city council. So I am so delighted that Michelle picked up the gauntlet after much nagging from a lot of her friends and is running for city council. And she will tell you all about all the good stuff and what she hopes to do in Alameda. And we really need a fresh voice in Alameda. If you know anything about the city of Alameda, some of these people are definitely retreads and have been running and running and running. So she's got some fresh ideas. Michelle, take it away.
Okay, so I don't know the format, so I was just going to talk. All those things are about me are true. Yeah, and I decided to run for city council because I mean, I live here and I want better representation. I got really nervous when I, learned that Malia Vela was terming out. So I just said now is the time, because I was going to wait 2 more years from now, but this just seemed like the right time. I don't want to lose all the good things that do occur here on the island, the things that the city's been doing. And then my 2 biggest concerns are housing and climate change. With housing, we have I guess it's not technically a mandate, but we have to build 5,000 homes, over 5,000 here in Alameda. And there's lots of great plans, it's not like social housing, but a lot of the plans do require, affordable housing at different income levels. And so I feel like we're easing into that. I've been talking to a lot of housing advocates lately. And so I've learned a lot more about social housing. I think it's definitely the way to go because everything we've done up until now doesn't work. So we need to be creative and innovative. And for things like social housing, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It exists. It's working in other places, and we should be doing what works. I mean, it's kind of scary, right? Being the first, but we have to do things differently. And so I'm going to backtrack. My biggest motivator for this is I am a teacher. I do work at a high school, and I see children graduate every year. And I know they're going into a world very differently than the world, we all had, right? They have to deal, like I got to move out when I was 19 with my waitressing job, right? And put myself through school. I could do that. I had choices. Kids today move home and they have college degrees. They can't move out. They don't have what we had. Families and children that grow up here in Alameda, can't stay here.
Number of years ago.
So anyway, I could spend hours on this, but that is why it's really important to me. I want
Could somebody
to.
mute?
Ina, can you
Oh.
melt? Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
Yes,
I'm
we
very
agree.
passionate about making this, creating a place in Alameda specifically, but I mean, ideally everywhere where, we're creating a community that thrives, that's building responsibly, that's building, with, keeping in mind climate change, public transportation. I mean, that's another culture shift. It's not just building the buses, it's, increasing ridership on buses. And the other thing is sea level rise, which is huge. We are an island city. And so I think one of the greatest plans I've seen so far is the Alameda Oakland Estuary Plan. It's not just let's build seawalls, it's multifaceted. They're talking about putting like oyster beds, just things that are natural, into the environment to combat this, or I'd say, well, I like this phrase, to have resiliency to climate change, because it's happening. And so with that too, it's, talking about resiliency centers where people can cool off, our most vulnerable population. Yeah, so there's a lot of good things I like on the island, like we're building bike lanes and, they have a Vision Zero plan, which I like. But we got to just keep doing all this good stuff. And like Sherry said, there is an element that doesn't want any of this stuff. They just want things to, stay like in 1996 or something, and freeze, as if what's going on in the Bay Area, as if we can be separate from that, and we can't. We need to do our part. So, and we should.
Unmute. Okay, do we have some questions from my Michelle?
I have one.
Okay, Michael?
So in the questionnaires, the question is, how do we develop more affordable and low-cost housings? And you replied, I think we need to better regulate corporate development. How can you elaborate more on that?
Well, there's a few things like, yeah, definitely, regulating corporate development. I think a really important way is to, and I've read a little bit about this, but this seems to be a long-term solution, is to have public banks. I know Alameda County is working on that. I was just reading forgot what it's called, but they were hoping to open up in 2024, 2025. I definitely support that. Because if we could start, or cities could start using public banks to build and to finance, that creates, right, homes, it creates income for the city, but it also is going to drive, housing lower, because other, corporations, for example, would have to compete. So so somebody gave me this example and I looked into it, but like North Dakota is a public bank, like the whole state. And so during the 2008 housing crisis, when everyone, suffered and had, there were consequences. People were going bankrupt and losing their homes. North Dakota was fine, like because of public banks. And I was like, oh, like I didn't know that. So now I know. I think it's a great idea. I think this is something that is Alameda ready for this? Maybe not today, but I think it's something we need to do because the way housing is today, it's being treated like a commodity, but housing is a human right. And nobody is entitled to a 20% return on their investment in real estate. So, right? So like, yes, I definitely think we need regulation, but I also think creating a banking system of people for workers that works for us, like I'm all for that, for sure. And I don't think any of us workers are regular people. I mean, those bankers are not smarter than us. We can do this.
You're saying the bank will provide the loan for the people to purchase, or the bank owns the house?
You know what? The way I understand it would be, so it would be like I'm like not exactly sure, but like, so the public bank isn't for like us to have like checking accounts and savings accounts. It's for like the city to be able to borrow money to build these homes. So it's like, I think about it like when I think about the Bailey savings and loan, like from It's a Wonderful Life, right? Like it's our money, that the people put into it, and that we're financing housing. Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions for Michelle?
Well, I noticed you have your hand up.
Oh. Okay. Well, Michelle, we are kind of on a quick schedule, and so I'm hoping that you can just wrap it up. And be sure, I forgot to tell Eva too, be sure and put your information in the chat so everybody knows how to get a hold of you. And if you want to just wrap it up, we're so glad that you came.
Sorry, I press enter and too much when I'm typing. Okay, I am really glad to be here. When I answered your questionnaire, it was a lot, but then I was like, hey, like, we really do share a lot of the same values, progressive values when it comes to like a two-state solution. I think we talked, there was like labor unions and single payer healthcare and on and on. And, it's just great to be in a blue city in a blue county in California. And with all this though, like it's wonderful to have people that our values align, but more than that, like I really want things to get done. And I know from working with Sherry that like we get things done, right? Like when I think about, it was like the rent control is the big one, but we talked about the wellness center and, we don't win everything, but I think that's also the great thing about Alameda is that there are a lot of people here that really want great things for the city and that make it happen. And so I do want to be on city council. But I know it's like the way I see it is I'm just a piece of the puzzle because there's a lot of great people and really smart people. And yeah, we're going to get things done. We're going to get this bank, you guys. I always have lots of dreams, high expectations, but I do that in my classroom as a SPED teacher. And you know what? High expectations works. I always get results.
Okay. Thank you so much, Michelle. And guys, I haven't had dinner, so have a good meeting.
Sherry.
And I'll see you later.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Sherry is in Denver. She just arrived there a little bit and she came in just to introduce, I forgot who, Michelle. Anyway, okay, great. We're going to move on to the next candidate now. Her name is Jolene Gazmen, and she lives in Albany, California, and she's running to be on the school board. And I believe she's never ran for an office before. She arrived in the East Bay about 5 years ago as a student and a parent. And she ended up getting involved with others. A student parent community really kind of came together, and she's very involved with that. And she's active in a group called TANK, which is Tenants and Neighbors Coalition. It's pretty well known here in the East Bay for helping tenants. And welcome. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll ask you some questions.
Yeah. Hi, all. Thanks for having me. I have my little speeches prepared, so please bear with me because
Okay.
I get nervous talking off the cuff. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Jolene Gazmen. I moved to Albany about 5 years ago, just like Carol said. Thank you, Carol. To become a student, left behind all the family we knew, left behind our friends, left everything behind and moved to a place where we didn't know anybody. And here we managed to build a community. We managed to find a new home. And I really feel that my family and I found a new place that we can call our home here in Albany. During those 5 years, I worked with people within my community for various events around the UC Village, like the Bear Pantry, which helps to provide people with necessities like food or other toiletries. I helped with social distance graduations, different holiday drives, especially during COVID times where we were able to get supplies and even fun things like presents out to the kids and families. And I did a lot more. I've also volunteered at Ocean View Elementary, whether it be room parenting, helping with events, driving others to get supplies for our fall festival, or even something that might seem as small as helping to watch the children while other parents volunteered, because it's an act of love and an act of community. My goal in running for the Albany School Board is to ensure that we continue to progress here in Albany. I want to bring in teacher inputs on programs that should be implemented in schools and expand services for students with disabilities. I also really want to expand access to counselors for mental wellness. All of these kids that are here in our schools right now have lived through a pandemic during some of their most crucial developmental stages, and I want to make sure that we are doing as much as we can for them. And most importantly, I want to highlight the fact that I really want to bolster voices within our community of people that perhaps don't feel as seen or heard within public spheres. I want to help create this space that we can be proud to say that we work together as a community to help create the best possible environment for our teachers, for our admin, for our families, and at the center of it all, for our students to learn and to grow. Thank you.
Okay. Who would like to ask the first question of Jolene?
Oh, I'll go.
Okay.
So this is again how I thank you for responding to all the questionnaire. I after I read it, I know you put a lot of thought in responding to all of the questions. I want to ask you about this number 25. What are the causes of housing crisis in California and the Bay Area? There's a sentence in here. We need to there's a lack of regulation of who can buy the houses, buy properties. You imply that corporations buying properties. How do you regulate that? How do you propose to regulate that?
You know, I will be quite honest. Just like Carol said in the beginning, this is my first time running for office. I'm very green to these spheres.
Yeah.
But I know within our community, I see a big need for it. I see a lot of student parents. A lot of us had maybe adverse experiences prior to coming to school, and so we delayed our journeys for one reason or another. And like now we're trying to. I'm sorry if I'm going off on a tangent. I promise it's going somewhere. But now we are trying to build up our lives, and we're trying to make sure that we gather our education so we can create better futures for our children, for our communities. But there is like a blockage there. You'll see, I know that there on one of our streets, it's called Adams, there is a house that is completely gutted, and they're still trying to sell it for $700,000. Because they know that somebody who is an investor or part of real estate, they're marketing it as something that they can flip and try and sell for hopefully in the millions, because that is where in and around where a lot of the homes around here cost. When you ask how do we regulate that, I would, a lot of the times for some of these questions, I would defer to somebody with more expertise, but I would love to get involved in those conversations. I would love to say what we've seen just as community members and try and figure out, hey, what is the best possible way to combat this? Because I think that if we come together as a community in these numbers, saying, you know, you are trying to price us out of this market, you are blocking so many people from having stable houses. You're making it so that a lot of these really promising students and promising individuals have to move out of here. A lot of the times POC families, that's a lot of the student parents that we have. Then I think that we can really enact change that way. So I hope that that somewhat answers your question. And once I get more information, I would love to even just write to you and come
Yeah,
back
I mean,
with even
that's
clearer
great.
answers.
I mean, in one of the questions, I don't remember which one is, you actually proposed a solution to find empty lots and empty houses and
Oh,
just
I did say
build
that.
this.
There's a
Yeah,
racetrack behind here.
yeah,
And I think that there are a lot of places that you pass by even on foot. Like my family is a family of 4 now. We have 1 car. And so a lot of the times I'm with the kiddos and we're walking and I see a lot of empty properties or large lots that are just sitting there. So
yeah.
I don't see why we couldn't try to build some affordable housing on those lots.
Good, thank you.
Oh, okay, so you're running for school board, right?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, what would you like to have as your biggest goal or biggest challenge as far as working with schools and families and
Yeah, I think that one of the
in that
biggest things,
context?
yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I see within our community is I don't know if I see a lot of, I came from the University Village, like I said, it's a very diverse population. And sometimes I look at our boards and our board, and I don't always see that represented in our board. I see a lot more people that sometimes come from places of more privilege. And I will say, you know, sometimes they are very knowledgeable, but it's not fair to be representative of a community when you don't have people that are within that diverse community, like sitting in the seats, helping to make those decisions, helping to enact change for all levels. Because if you're not part of that community, sometimes you just, maybe it's as innocuous as you just don't know, like you don't see it. And so you don't know how to help those communities. So that's one of the things that one of the big things that I want to address. Another one is disability services. That's a big passion of mine, especially recently. I work with children with disabilities, particularly autism spectrum disorder. And my daughter was recently diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. She's autistic and she has ADHD. And so if going through that process, I see a lot of like potholes, potholes in terms of how it's run, and sometimes how they don't have enough resources. So if I can help to get into those conversations and try and figure out what are some tangible solutions, that would be a really big platform.
Right. Okay, do we have any further questions?
There are charter schools in Albany.
You know, I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
I'm so sorry. Let me look that up right now.
You know, Albany is known for having very, very good schools, so
Yes.
there probably are not charter schools.
Yeah, we are a very small city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I've only been here 5 years, but my purview is I know a lot of the public schools, like we have the 3 elementary school feeds into the
Yeah.
middle school feeds into the high school. I know that nearby I have a friend who does work at a charter school, but within Albany itself, I don't recall off the top of my head.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of any.
Mm.
Okay, any further questions? Going once? Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. And will be in a day or two. It's being recorded, and in a day or two, it will actually be up on YouTube. And a lot of people that are our members watch it before they vote. And a ballot will go out in a week or week and a half. We should have results. Anyway,
you so much.
thanks so much. It was really nice meeting you.
It was
So,
wonderful.
you wanna give her a minute to wrap up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Duh,
okay.
oh, please.
I know we're all tired. It's
No,
been
it's
a long
okay.
season already.
Don't worry. I also have a closing speech if that's okay. So I'll wrap it up with this. I believe our focus should be on the students. I want to make sure that they have the services, receive the services that they need. I want to make sure that their voices are heard, and I want to make sure that they feel confident and capable through their academics, because the hope is that we produce confident, capable, and overall caring human beings within our district. In order to do this, we have to center the voices of students and in turn, all of the teachers that inspire our AUSD scholars. And that's why I'm running for Albany School Board. I want to make sure that our communal voices and our communal interests are heard, and that we can be part of this decision-making process. The decisions made by this board affect the students, they affect the teachers, the admin, and most important to remember, they are decisions that reverberate throughout our entire community. So this I see as a monumental responsibility, and if elected, I intend to carry that with the weight, the responsibility, the pride, the care, and the compassion that all of these decisions deserve. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay,
Thank
we
you.
shall move on now to the next candidate. Have we heard from Shirag?
No, I haven't heard back from him. So
Why don't we move on to Linda for Parks?
awesome. So I'm going to introduce Linda. So Linda is running for East Bay Regional Parks District Ward 2, which is 75% in Alameda County and 25% in Contra Costa County. So it crosses over 2 counties. That's a rough figure. So Linda has 37 plus years of experience as an environmental scientist. Yes, she's a real scientist. She's a community educator, a policymaker, and a park steward. She also worked for 20 years at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and has served for the past 6 years on the East Bay Parks Regional Parks District Advisory Committee. So without further ado, here is Linda. And Linda, you probably figured out the format by now. Take a couple of minutes to tell us about yourself, why we should endorse you. We'll have some questions and then give you like a minute or so to wrap up, and we're not like super sticky on time. So you are on.
Great. Yeah. I'd like to lay out that the agency I'm working for, this is a policy seat to oversee a parks district. It's our nation's largest parks district, and it's actually facing a lot of climate pressures right now. So it's super important that we have a science and parks stewardship person to be a policymaker and at the table, because the East Bay Regional Park District is writing its second century plan. That's what inspired me. This is my life's work. And as a volunteer, I've done a lot of work in a lot of different ways of helping the environment through youth, through seniors, through mentoring climate action plans, general plans. So when I heard that the agency was writing the second century plan, and I was already doing the work, I'm already working for the agency for the past 6 years. The seat is opening up because D. Rosario is retiring. When he ran for the seat in 2016, I thought about running for the seat, and he approached me and said, hey, if you support me in my campaign, when I'm elected, I will make you my appointee. And then when I'm ready to retire, you can take over that seat. So that's where I've been. I've been serving on the Parks Advisory Commission as Dee's appointee for the past 6 years, and he is now retiring. So as you heard, I have a lot of career experience at the EPA. I'm an environmental scientist. I'm a commissioner for 6 years, but a couple other things. I've been a union member for 20 years. At EPA, we were all in the union, and I'm the only candidate with that type of union experience. I've also been the mayor of my town. I was a mayor and council member for 4 years in Moraga. So I'm no stranger to this world. I'm battle tested. I've worked in the field, and I've really, I'm ready to do this job because of the urgency, the timing of the century plan. And really our parks are facing unprecedented dying off of trees, 1,500 acres in a report recently of our trees are dead in the park. 4 of our ponds are warming up and have that toxic blue-green algae you've heard about. You know, our parks closed for the first time ever because of heat recently. That was unheard of. We've also had the outdoor air quality issues when our skies were purple. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Why is that important? Because I think that our parks are facing a really important time and need an environmental scientist and advocate. Former General Manager Bob Doyle pointed out to me that this is not a run from municipality or a county supervisor. This is a run to manage the natural resources of one of the greatest jewels we have here in the Bay Area. So I'm here. I am a huge supporter. I'm a Bernie Dem. I was a Green Party member for 25 years, but when Bernie switched to the Democratic Party in 2016, so did I. So I'm super progressive, super active, super involved. And yeah, I'll just start there and maybe take some of your questions. I think experience matters, and I think that it's time for the district to have an environmental scientist at the seat driving policy for the decades to come.
Awesome, thank you. So questions. Who has a question? Please don't look at
I'll
me for
ask.
questions. Okay, good, thank you, because I've been trying to relearn PDI. I've been a little distracted.
I'll go first. You know, you saw the questionnaires, and the questionnaires is quite wide-ranging and quite inclusive. Has nothing to do what the candidacy you're seeking. I understand that you are running for park superintendent or supervisor, but there are people running for a school board. The same question I asked to them as well. So, I mean, you probably have an advantage because there are a lot. You've been a mayor, so let me ask you about what do you believe the cause of housing crisis in California? I don't know if there's a housing crisis in Moraga or not, but this is about California.
Yeah, I just want to clarify too, you know, this endorsement is super important to me, and I didn't mean to short the questionnaire process at all. I had written several times for about 8 weeks to get the questionnaire, and when I finally got it, I had about 16 hours to complete it in the middle of, oh my God, you can only imagine running for a campaign in 2 counties is like. By the way, I have to address the comment, it's 75% of the votes in Alameda, but it's actually most of the land, 75% of the land to be protected is in Contra Costa County. So I would be the only the second representative on this board to be from Contra Costa County. There's 7 electeds, and we're not well represented in Contra Costa County where most of the land is, and so that should be considered or weighted. Back to housing, of course we have a housing problem in Moraga. We have a housing problem everywhere. I'm from New Hampshire. I'm a blue collar worker. I was brought up, I left home when I was 15 years old. I know all about trying to struggle and trying to make a living. What do I think the problem? Well, first of all, I actually am a landlord. I rent, I have a duplex, and I'm also a renter. I have a vacation home that I rent. So I've seen it from both sides. And I do think that landlords are getting way too much. As much as I like getting a good return on my investment, I mean, I think it's almost ridiculous. I don't raise my tenants' rent. I haven't raised her rent in 6 years. I have a permanent renter on the other side of my duplex. I think part of the problem is that there's no checks and balances. I think there should be a 5 or 10% max. And I don't think when a tenant moves out, I should be able to double the rent. I mean, I just think that's just going, it's just ridiculous. We need to have some kind of checks on that. And I do think outside investment in properties, not in the community. It was an interesting conversation. I don't have the answer from the Jolene. That was, I thought, a difficult question to be asked and to have to answer it also. But I do think that there's got to be some checks and balances. We have a huge housing crisis, and we do need more houses. There's a big movement right now called the YIMBY movement, the Yes in My Backyard. And I keep telling everybody I'm going to start the PIMBY movement because I'm a probably in my backyard. So we need housing, but we also need to make sure it's net zero. We need to make sure it's off the grid. It needs to have purple pipe. I worked at EPA. Why the heck are we getting water all cleaned up to the point of drinking water standards and then flushing it down a toilet? I mean, that is just ridiculous. We've got to change how housing is done, how things are done. And so we need more housing and we need to do it right. And it needs to be in style with the neighboring community. But I'm not running for housing, but I do have a lot of strong opinions. I just didn't get to all of them in your 40-question questionnaire. So I apologize again for that. I have very strong opinions and very active and very vocal and writing lots of petitions on all of these issues, including the one that you just asked me, Michael.
Great. This is good, actually, because when people watch this video, they will discover what your philosophy or your general feelings are. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for that info on where the geography actually is, because it's okay. We got you endorsed at the Central Committee, but I could have used that argument. I did not have that in my toolkit. So that's actually really good to know. I was not aware that the bulk of the
Well,
land's actually in
thanks,
Contra Costa.
thank you to Marisol Rubio, who did raise it.
Yeah, so, yeah, no, yeah, we need to figure out a way to get information going out better, but yeah, that's definitely a very, very valid point. So, cool. So any more questions?
I would just like to comment that you're not the first person who hasn't answered a number of questions. And what we're looking for is, we know you can answer the ones in your area, but we want to see the whole person. Like, do they believe in that everybody should have housing? Do they believe that we should not be invading other countries, et cetera, et cetera?
No, I agree. I just love our revolution. I actually like the questions. I would have taken the time to at least written a couple sentences on each. I support the entire platform, and I have, like I said, I'm more progressive than a progressive Democrat because I was a Green Party member and I was the first Green Party mayor elected. I think there were only 6 Green Party mayors in the United States. So I was very proud.
Where were you, Mayor? Where were you?
I'm Moraga, mayor of Moraga.
Okay.
But yeah, I can tell you I did have another application or 2 similar, and I took all the time, and all the 40 questions are true to my heart. I mean, I don't believe that people should be left in jail because they're poor and don't have mail money. I don't think that drugs should be, a criminal offense. I don't think homeless people should be, fined for being homeless as if they don't already have enough pressures on them. I mean, I feel very strongly about your questions, and it's not because I didn't feel strongly about them, I didn't answer them. Plus, there was some technology glitches. Plus, we had some miscommunication. I've got a brother who had a stroke. Healthcare is so true to my heart right now. I can't even tell you how strongly I feel about having a better healthcare system and public transit, commuting over to San Francisco and seeing that poor people just can't even get to the works and can't get to the jobs where they are. I can go on and on about all 40 of your questions. So it wasn't for lack of their importance or my alignment with them. So again, I apologize for the glitches in that. And I guess when this is publicly, it'll look a little odd that some of my questions aren't answered, but I hope you don't hold that against me for this important endorsement.
Yeah, most people will watch the video. Yeah, they'll watch the video, they'll get it. And yeah, we apologize for that. You were unfortunately reaching out to Our Revolution National, and they're not so good about having someone monitor that email, I don't think. So that was where the disconnect kind of happened. And then you and I connected, and we managed to put together this 4th and final session. So fortunately, it all worked out. So any more questions, y'all? I am seeing no more questions. So yeah, take a minute or so to wrap up. And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, well, I think our president debate's wrapping up right now too, and I think it's gone pretty well. I don't know if I can possibly wrap up as well as Kamala can, but all I can say is this is a super important job. It's such a big position. The nation and the world look to us to see if we're doing a good job. Such an important time with climate change, resilience. and I'm ready to get to work. I have the degrees. I didn't mention I also have a management MBA. I've managed multi-million dollar budgets for Superfund sites. The agency that I'm running for is a $318 million budget. I've been a project manager my whole life, so I'm just really excited to get to work. I have deep connections with everything from the tribal community. I've done a lot of work in community right to know. I've worked with the Washoe tribe for 7 or 8 years. I've worked with the underserved community locally in Oakland, and I protected the Oakland port during Homeland Security. I was the import-export officer. I mean, it goes on and on, the background I have and all that I would bring. And so it's important. There's a lot of pressures. I have the experience, and I would just absolutely love to have your endorsement and support behind me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm sure I'll see you out my way soon.
Okay, great. Thank you so much,
Very much.
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, our final candidate, I reached out to him on Messenger, and I have not heard anything back from him. So,
Wrote to
and
Sherry,
you
said
emailed
that-
him.
I wrote to Sherry and
Okay.
said that if he doesn't show, she'll have to take him off the ballot. I
Yeah,
think
it's been
she
an
did
hour.
do that.
I don't think he's gonna show.
Yeah.
He's a new candidate, but I mean, he applied for this, he got the information. I sent him the Zoom link again.
Michael,
So-
when he applied, let him know it was gonna be tonight. If he doesn't read things, what can we say?
Well, exactly. I mean, so I'm sorry, you have to take some responsibility as a candidate.
I stopped the recording. Stop recording.
Yes,